Hey guys, Mo Long here with Electromaker. I am taking a look at Batocera on the Raspberry Pi. If you're not familiar with this, it's a super cool retro gaming operating system, and if you've used anything like RetroPie or Recalbox, you'll notice a pretty similar experience. It does run the emulation station front end, includes a ton of different emulators, and even has the Kodi Media Center built in, just like Recalbox and RetroPie. In addition to the Raspberry Pi, you will find installers for a number of other different platforms, including a handful of Odroid boards, as well as different x86 PCs. So the first thing we're going to want to do is head over to the Batocera website, and we're going to want to download the installer. Which version you get will depend on what Raspberry Pi board you're using. So since I'm using the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, I'm going to download the Raspberry Pi 3 and Raspberry Pi 3B Plus installer, but there is also an image for the Raspberry Pi 2 as well as the Raspberry Pi Zero. The Odroid XU4 version probably runs really well. That's actually a board I'm a huge fan of, as well as the Rock Pro 64. I've tried out a few different operating systems on both of those boards, and on the Odroid XU4, I'm a huge fan of GameStation Turbo, which is a complete Debian desktop that comes with a number of different emulators pre-installed. And on the Rock Pro 64, I've been enjoying running Recalbox. So let's go ahead and download that installer. And once you've got that downloaded, you're going to want to navigate into your downloads folder or wherever you saved that to. It is in image.gz, so we're going to need to extract the image file using something like 7-zip. So just right click on that file. If you're using 7-zip, go down to 7-zip and extract here. It should be a pretty quick decompression. And then what you're going to need to do is use a program to mount that image file on your boot medium, in this case a micro SD card. So I'm going to go ahead and use Etcher. Go ahead and select your image. And now select your drive. I am using a 200 gigabyte SanDisk micro SD card. And once you've got all that set up, go ahead and hit flash. As you can see, the ROMs that I loaded up are appearing now. So let's go ahead and just test out Super Nintendo. These should run completely fine, as the Raspberry Pi 3 is more than capable of running games from this system.
Big Apple, 3F. Welcome to Mario Kart. Mario Grand Prix. Select your player. Let's go. Okay. Select map.
really pleased with how well Nintendo 64 games run on the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. Granted, it's not perfect, but I still remember the first time I ever tried to run an N64 game on my Raspberry Pi 2, and the performance was pretty shaky. And now, for the most part, with a couple of tweaks, N64 games run pretty well. The Pi 3B Plus really isn't equipped all that well to run PlayStation Portable games, but you can scrape by with moderate performance, especially if you toggle on frame skip. But let's just go ahead and take a look at a PlayStation Portable game. We'll take a look at Marvel Ultimate Alliance, one of my favorite games from any system, and one that I purchased on a number of different platforms, including PC, PlayStation 3, and PSP.
What the hell is going on? Where's our air support? Form up on me. Yeah.
If you want, you can go under controller settings and you can configure your controller. I'm not going to mess with that since my controller is already working fine. You can go under user interface settings and you can select your video output. You can toggle on overscan. You can mess with your screensaver behavior. You can set it so that your frame rate show your clock, a bunch of different other things such as using different themes. You can go under your sound settings here, and again you can mess with your system volume as well as your output device, set that to HDMI, the audio out jack, or just leave it on auto. I mentioned you can mess with your network settings, and you can also scrape your ROMs, which is super easy to do from here. Or what you can do is actually use a computer-based means of scraping your ROMs as well as scrape via command line tools. I gotta say I'm pretty impressed with this release. It's not terribly different from Recall Box, but I think just like Recall Box, there's some excellent documentation. There's a robust wiki. I think the Recall Box user community tends to be a little bit more robust than the Batocera user community, but again, these two distros are pretty much the same. Thanks guys for watching. Let me know if there are any operating systems and boards that you would like me to take a look at. If you want to give us a follow, you can check us out at electromaker.io on the internet, at Electromaker.io on Facebook and Twitter, and Electromaker_IO on Instagram. And if you want to follow me, Electromaker Senior Editor and Social Media Manager Mo Long, you can check me out at Mitchell C. Long on Twitter and Instagram, as well as read my writing on cupofmo.com. Hit me up on social media, hit us up at Electromaker, and let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know what boards you're using, and keep on making.